is The Furnace with John Burton.
Hey, let's talk about hindrances to fulfilling your life goals and your passions and your callings. And, I've written on this and taught on this, but I want to come at it from a little bit of a different direction today. There are so many people out there, and boy, I had the privilege of running with some of them in our ministry school in Detroit, and prayer movements in Colorado and Detroit, and just different things that we've been involved in. And there are so many people out there, young and old, who are just zealous about the things of God and the plans that God has for them. Yet they also, very many of them, find themselves frustrated because often years go by and nothing's happening. Nothing's opening up. No doors are opening. Nothing's unfolding before them. And they wonder what in the world is going on. Why are the doors not opening? And the Bible talks about, hope deferred makes the heart sick. And that's legit. That's real. And the enemy is really good at doing things in our life that would cause us to partner with him as the accuser. And so he loves it. He loves it when Christians accuse God of not coming through, accuse God of not, not providing or not giving them the life that they had hoped for. And listen, early on, young people, especially even older people, can get addicted to personal prophecy, and they want to receive the latest, greatest prophetic word over their life. And I believe in prophecy. Prophecy is real, and when it's from God and it's pure, it's necessary. We need to be a prophetic people. But what happens is, if we're not careful, those prophecies can actually cause our heart to be sick, because hope can become deferred. Because what happens is we'll receive all these prophecies. I've received them, and so many have, in the younger years, in the earlier years. God has great plans for you, and this is going to happen, and you are called as a sign and a wonder, and you're going to be, you're one of the emerging young leaders, and on and on and on and on. And so what happens is the years go by, and that very often doesn't come to pass for a lot of people. And they wonder why. Well, there are a ton of reasons why. None of them God's fault. And let's talk about just maybe two or three. One of them is this. Listen to this. Many people presume that they are supposed to go into full-time ministry, or for those who are already in full-time ministry, they presume that they're supposed to stay in full-time ministry. And that is not always the case. And there are a lot of people out there that are just radically frustrated because they don't have joy. That abundant life thing isn't really happening. They're frustrated. They can't break through. They can't power through, and they don't understand what's going on. So people that are not yet in full-time ministry, they are frustrated because it's not happening. They're frustrated because those doors aren't opening. They don't know why they're not being received. Why don't they have a platform? Why aren't they receiving speaking engagements? Why can't they, land that pastoral position? Why did they try to maybe start a church and it didn't work? And, on and on. And well, they may not be called to it. They may not be called to that. Just because they have passion for Jesus, just because they came alive when, maybe another anointed man or woman of God spoke into them. And now, often what happens is, there's this natural or this supernatural desire to kind of be like the person that impacted your life, and that's not bad, that's fine. But when you take it as far as, well, I'm going to do it exactly the way that they did it, I'm going to be full-time in ministry just like they are, well, maybe that's not supposed to happen. So there are a ton of people out there who are just not supposed to be in full-time ministry. They're not supposed to. And then you've got those who are already in full-time ministry, and they're frustrated, and on and on and on. They're discouraged. They can't. Why isn't their ministry growing, and why isn't the church full, or whatever? And there's a lot of reasons. One of the reasons very well may be they're not supposed to be in full-time ministry. And listen, there are a ton of them out there. And I think it just, would be crushing maybe to their pride to admit that's the case. Where if they just surrendered, wave the white flag, let their pride take a hit and close up the church or shut down their ministry and go and get a job or start a business or do something like that. And then all of a sudden, the life is there, the joy is there, the anointing increases, they're able to have impact in ways they never thought they would. And man, I'm telling you, there are a lot of people out there that shouldn't be in full-time ministry. They're not supposed to be in that. They're not part of the fivefold. They're just not. They think they're a pastor and they're not. They think they're an evangelist. They're not. They think they're a teacher, a prophet, right? Apostle. They're not. And they're just, not only are they going to be miserable, but they're going to make a lot of people around them miserable. So the best choice would be for them to step out. And to take it even further, guess what? You might be a pastor or an apostle or a prophet or evangelist or a teacher and still not be called to full-time church leadership in terms of, as we know it in the Western culture here, full-time ministry. They're just not called to that. So we need marketplace apostles. We need marketplace pastors and prophets and all that. We need that. Okay, so that's the first thing I want to hit on. Some people are out there, they're just not supposed to be in full-time ministry, and there is nothing all that exciting about being in full-time ministry. There's nothing really glamorous about it. It seems like there is, but I'm telling you what, I'll tell you this: if you want the enemy just to annihilate you, go into full-time ministry when you're not supposed to. Paint that bullseye right on your chest and enter into ministry, and you don't have the anointing to deal with the attacks of the enemy. You don't have that apostolic authority to deal with the attacks of the enemy. Listen, it's a bad move. You don't want to do it. So that's the first thing. Secondly, and for me this is obvious, I think for a lot of people it's not. A lot of people are in the wrong geographic location. A lot of people, listen, there's something to be said for endurance. There really is, for sure. Especially in this day and age of this crazy millennial generation that we're in, where they're given a job a month or 2 months or 3 months or 8 months or a year and a half, and then they're quitting, and because of lack of patience. So I'm not talking about that. We need to have endurance. We need to stay the course as God has called us to when He's called us to be in a certain place. That being said, we don't get any special medals or badges or trophies for enduring in a place that God has released us from. And there are a lot of people that are frustrated because they refuse to change their geography. A lot of people are in the same city and state that they have been in for the last 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years. Oh my gosh. If you're called to that, great. But oh my gosh. I just can't imagine that, right? Because God's a dynamic God. He's continually moving and redirecting and giving new assignments. And, we're always asking for that new thing. Well, that new thing very often is in a new place. So it can very definitely make sense to move away from where you are. Sell your house, right? Get excited about a new beginning, a new start. Go on the job hunt in a new city, and talk to the Lord about what kind of ministry He's called you to there. And man, it's a thrill ride. It's amazing. It's fun as God leads you to do that. It really, really is. But even more than fun, it's not really about fun. It's about being responsive to the Lord and being where He's called us to be. My wife and I, and we're not. I'm not saying that we're the standard. I'm not saying that. But we have lived. Let me think here. I wonder if I can get this right. We started in Dayton, Ohio. That's where we met. And from Dayton, Ohio, we moved to Cleveland, Tennessee. This is pre-ministry years. I was kind of volunteer ministry at the time. And Cleveland, Tennessee, where she was in school. From Cleveland, Tennessee, I flew out early and started a job as youth pastor in San Diego, California. Amy finished school and then came on out. From there, we moved to Dallas, Texas, and took a position as the youth pastor at a large church there in Carrollton, Texas. From there, God was speaking to me. In fact, when we moved to Texas, the Lord said, I'm not in Texas primarily to minister to others. I'm there to learn. And so I knew that was my school. I was there to learn for the next season of life. So I'm always looking for the next season. Next season of life, I knew that, ultimately knew through some big time revelation and moves of God, that we were to start a church in Manitou Springs, Colorado. So after 2 years in Texas, we moved to Colorado. And so we were there for we started the church, we were there for approximately 8 years. Then, through some very dramatic moves of God, we knew it was time for us to go to the International House of Prayer in Kansas City, even though we owned a house in Colorado. In fact, it was our dream house, my wife's dream house, and big time payments there, and we still had a ministry in Colorado. We turned the ministry over to somebody else, and we moved to Kansas City with no income. And I mean, other than I did some graphic design on the side. That's it. And so we moved there, and then we leased out our house as a vacation rental for a while, and that brought in some money. So there we were in Kansas City. And then the Lord spoke to me, again dramatically, to move to Detroit. So we sold our house, which was a miracle in itself there in Kansas City. This is when the economy had crashed, and we sold our house full price. And we loaded up the rental, or the U-Haul, the truck, and drove to Detroit without any idea where we were going to live. So we got there and we parked our big old U-Haul truck out in a field somewhere, and we went looking for a place to rent, and finally found a place to rent. Second day we were there, rented a place, great place. And so we were there in Detroit and started a church, and there several years. And then we knew our season was done there. And I knew that if we were to stay in Detroit, fruitfulness wouldn't be there. The fire of the cloud had moved on. So then we decided to move to Branson, Missouri, which is where we are right now. But not only did we decide to do that, we decided, for a variety of reasons, mostly because God was directing this way, not to go into ministry. And I even shut down my traveling, where I travel very rarely now, on purpose. And I could have a pretty full calendar. And I just shut that down. And so I knew this was a season where God was shifting us. And He gave us, get this, just out of nowhere, He gave us an idea of starting an attraction here in Branson. And we had a small amount of money in the bank, and we went for it. And in 6 weeks' time, we rented a storefront and did all of the marketing and got the website and did all of the refurb and design and everything. And we opened an escape room here in Branson. We did that in 6 weeks' time. Got it going, and it just took off. And then, and ended up being ranked by USA Today as the 5th best escape room in the nation out of thousands a couple of years ago. And so we started that business, and then we started our axe throwing business, then we started our mystery events business. And so all of that has been our new reality. And now I primarily, in terms of ministry, I primarily write. And I'll do these podcasts, but I write. I write for Charisma Magazine and just my own website. And I've got another book that I got to get out there eventually. And so that's what I'm focusing on now. We've been doing that for the last 4 years. And so it's wonderful. I mean, it's glorious knowing that if we were leading a church right now, I'd probably be miserable. If I was in full-time ministry right now, we wouldn't be anywhere near as effective and blessed and free, and where our marriage is better now and our family life is better and we're more joyful and we're stronger. We're able to focus on some of the weaknesses we had and bring strength to that and kind of get refreshed and all that kind of stuff. And so now here we are in Branson. We've been here 4 years, and we don't know if we'll be here for another 20 years or another 20 months or 20 weeks. And so we're looking over the horizon for what's next. We've wondered a couple years ago, a year and a half, something like that ago, we wondered, in fact, we flew out there and wondered if we were going to move to the East Coast. Maybe start some businesses out there, and we're always looking. We're wondering. We're traveling a lot now. Maybe we would move to a beach town and open a business, or who knows, and keep these running here in Branson. And so the point is geography. You need to very possibly move from where you are to your next assignment. And so that's something else that keeps people frustrated and discouraged and depressed and sad and stuck, and all of that is because they're in the wrong place, right? You plant a palm tree in Minnesota, it's going to die, right? Palm tree needs to be in the Bahamas or in Florida or California. And so it just makes sense. But for, a lot of people get locked in to their hometown because where their mom and dad is and family or jobs or whatever. Listen, trust God to lead you out. I always encourage people to leave home and to leave their hometown. Always. I'm blessed that Skylar is in Tennessee now, and Parker's up in Kansas City, and they're on their own. They're away from home, and the opportunities are endless. They could go anywhere after they get done with school. They might come back to Branson. They may not. But we need to pry that door open and kind of look out there. I lived in Omaha, Arkansas for a short time back when I was like 13 years old. 191 people. And literally, there would be people in that town. They would never, ever leave that town even to go shopping. They would shop in that little town. They would not leave. And I'm not talking about moving. I'm talking about leaving. And they would stay there every day of their life until they die at 95 years old, sitting out on the porch in their overalls. And it was just mind-blowing to me. So I want to encourage you. There's just a couple reasons people get stuck. They can't power forward, and we'll kind of leave it at that for this podcast. And they're not supposed to be in full-time ministry, for example, or they're living in the wrong location, and so think about that. What do you think about that? What are some of your stories? What have you experienced? Did you leave ministry and see God start to prosper you in different ways? Did you move to another city and see God begin to do things in a new way? I'd love to hear what you have to say about that, but definitely give some thought to this. Your next blessing may be outside of ministry and outside of your current state or region. All right? Heck, maybe some of you are supposed to move overseas. That would be an adventure, wouldn't it? All right. Talk to you next time.
Thank you for listening to The Furnace with John Burton. You can access media, read articles, and partner with the ministry online at burton.tv. And by all means, share this podcast with those who are hungry for revival, reformation, and revolution.